Forged by pain, lifted by joy. Every challenge shapes us. Every triumph defines us. Life is a journey of resilience, growth, and transformation. Join us as we speak with remarkable people who've walked this path, facing adversity with courage and embracing victories with gratitude. Their stories are those of perseverance, strength, and inspiration, a testament to the power of the human spirit. Join us as they share their journey, offering wisdom, encouragement, and a reminder that every struggle can lead to a greater purpose.
Hey, I want to welcome you to Courageous Protectors Podcast. This is the Courageous Protectors Podcast. My name is Louis Arnold II. Thankful that you're here. Here at Courageous Protectors, our hope is to inspire you, to encourage you through stories of everyday people. Some of these people you may know, some you may not. But today I have a special guest. Today is my father, Louis Arnold Sr. He's going to share his story with us. So I hope that you guys are blessed and encouraged. Here we go. Hey, Dad, I would like to welcome you to Courageous Protectors. How are you doing today?
Good, son.
I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm doing good. Today's been a good day.
Praise God.
Started off with, dropping the kiddo off at school and then gym time, trying to get my body in shape so that I can be healthy and continue to be a protector for my family and those who need it.
So
How
important.
about you?
Had a doctor's appointment this morning, and now here with you. My day is going good. Have a couple of other
Mm.
appointments, so yeah, day is going good. Every day is a good day when you wake up and in good health.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That well, I want to start off with your story. Can you take our listeners, our viewers, back to the beginning? Like, where did it all start for you? Just at the beginning of your story, if you can set the stage.
I don't know how far back I can go or how far I can remember. Um, I was born in the West End, born in 1952, uh, to my mother Rosemary and my father Early. Um, what I remember early on was a very rough upbringing. The West End was a very vibrant place. It was a strong community. Uh, Families helped each other out, worked with each other, uh, cared for each other, looked out for each other. I can remember it. I have an older sister and I have a brother that's younger than me, 2 years younger than me, James. And I can remember us being raised in the West End, and I can remember very tough times. When you're young, you don't realize things, but when you get older and you look back, you realize things. I can remember us having an apartment. I think we had two rooms. There was a kitchen and living room slash bedroom, and we all slept in that room. My mother, my older sister, myself, and my brother James. My mother had her bed, and back in those days they called them rollaway beds. It was a bed that was on rollers. You roll it out, and it folded out into a bed. And the three of us slept on that when we were young. I can remember tough times of not having enough to eat, not having proper clothing to wear. Can remember moving a lot, even in the West End. Uh, but when you're in that, you don't realize how poor you are. And we were very poor. Went a lot of days without eating. I always tell this story, and I've told you this story. I can remember it was one Thanksgiving, and all we had was some mayonnaise. And to this day, I hate mayonnaise because that's what we ate for Thanksgiving was mayonnaise. And so it was tough. My mother was a survivor. She did all she could to provide for us. I was in the West End until till the fourth grade. I don't know how old you are in the fourth grade, 8, 9 years old, I guess. And we ended up because they began to come into the West End and quote unquote urban renewal. moved up a lot of black folks out of the West End, and we moved out of the West End into what back then was called Lower Mount Auburn. We stayed on Mulberry Street, which was off of Main Street in the upper part of the West End, but it was the lower part of Mount Auburn. And there is where she met our stepfather, the man who really raised me, uh, King Glover. We called him Mr. Doc. And there's a little history behind that name, Doc, and I won't cover it at this time, but I just found that history out. And so at that time, when we moved to Mulberry, there was six of us, 6 or 7 of us by that time. Um, and even those days were tough until my mother met Mr. Doc, and he worked construction. He was from Selma, Alabama, and he worked construction, and he began to provide for us. He chose to marry my mother at the time, and she had 6 kids, which is uh, which is unheard of today, and treated us as his own, loved us like we were uh, his birth children, and we were so grateful to God for that. And I was looking at some of your questions, and you asked about dreams and struggles. I don't know what my dreams were. I know one of them was being a police officer when I was very young, because my Aunt Daisy's husband, William Alexander, um, was a police officer. And so he used to bring his police hats home, and myself, my brother James, and my cousin Shane used to wear them all the time and had dreams of being a police officer. And that was a very young age. That was third, fourth grade. Uh, so those are some of my memories. There are a lot more I probably could discuss. Uh, I can remember a time where we had to stay out of school, and because our shoes, the holes were too big. When the holes were small in our shoes, we would put cardboard in it to protect our feet. But the holes got too big. The holes about probably got about this size, and cardboard did no good. So our mother kept us out of school. Back then they had what was called truant officers. If kids were out of school for a certain at the time, the school would send these truant officers to the home to check on the child. And I can remember them knocking on the door and asking why we're not in school. And my mother told them that my children don't have shoes to wear. And she told her, I can remember her telling us to go get our shoes. And we brought them to the door and showed them to the truant officers. And I don't know, I don't know how it transpired, but the school ended up contacting my mother and paying for my brother and uh, James and our shoes so that we could get back in school. And that year, I ended up having to repeat the fourth grade because I missed so much time in school. Myself and James both had to repeat. I repeated the fourth grade. He repeated the second grade. So that set us back a year in school. And it wasn't because we couldn't do the work; it's because we didn't have shoes to wear to school. So those were tough times, uh, and they were also good times because our family structure was very strong. My mother's brothers and sisters loved each other dearly, and they helped provide when they could. Because the reality is, we were all poor, and um, and so you
Mm.
helped out family members when you could help them out. I remember my very first Christmas that I truly remember. My first bike was bought by my mother's sister, Aunt Frances. She bought me and James our first bikes. Um, and that was a joy when we woke up Christmas morning. We had these big red shiny bikes sitting up, and she also bought us these. I really liked westerns, so she bought us some holsters with these little guns, twin guns. So that's one of the Christmases that I truly remember.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You were brought. You had those memories. Were they reignited when you watched your grandson receive a bike on his birthday?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, my grandkids, they bring me so much joy. And the only grandson, Nathaniel,
Mm,
yeah, he brings me a lot of joy. Yeah, when I see him, I reflect. Really, I reflect more on you when you were young because he's a spitting image
mm,
of you. He's not as reserved as you when you were young because he's a lot more active, but he's a spitting image of you and has the intellect that you have, that you had at that age and that you have
mm.
now. Yeah, yeah,
Oh man. Well,
yeah,
praise God. Thank you, Dad. So tell me a little bit more about that story. So you had that bike. You and Uncle James. You were given bikes, and you
yep.
shared a little bit about your early childhood. Uh, as we journey through the years, uh, yeah. What about your teenage years and your high school
Okay.
years? What did those look like for you?
Um, Actually, my teenage years were really good. My mother allowed us, and my stepfather allowed us to grow in our teenage years. She didn't put a lot of restrictions on us. We could go to parties, we could go hang out. We leave the house and be gone 4 or 5 hours. She didn't worry about where we were at because she had given us instructions on how to live and how to act. But I worked a lot in my teenage years because we still didn't have a lot. I can remember times our gas and electric being turned off. Coming home, and we stayed on Burton, and you look up on that fourth floor and you see the house dark, and you knew, oh man, the gas and electric is off. So now you're living by candlelight. Uh, you're able to eat because the gas would be on, but the electric would be off. So she would still be able to cook some meals. As far as clothing, I had to work when I was in as a teenager. I had all different jobs. Actually, I've been working. I just retired almost 2 years ago, but before that, I have worked as long as I can remember. I can remember being a young guy. Me and James would go down to Findlay Market and sell shopping bags for a nickel. We would go uptown and shine shoes for 10 cents. We sold newspaper. We sold the Enquirer, the Post. They called it the Post and Time Star, which is a competing newspaper in Cincinnati at the time. We had paper routes. We had I sold papers on the corner of 7th and Vine Street. That's when downtown Cincinnati was booming and thriving, and I would sell newspapers to businessmen coming and going on the corner of 7th and Vine. Sold the Jet magazine. I sold Essence magazine. I worked at Frisch's. I worked at oh my God, Velveteen. I've had numerous jobs, but in high school I worked at Frisch's so that I could buy the clothes that I wanted to wear for school because my mother, she just couldn't afford it with 7 kids, my mother and father. And then also during the summer they had CCY, which was a summer work program, and you worked 5 days a week. You did 5 hours a day, and you got paid. It was so I worked as a janitor in several other schools in the city during the summer, but it would always end in time for me to participate in summer football drills. So I worked all the way through high school, even as a junior and a senior. I worked to buy the things that I wanted to wear. So I've worked my entire life. And teenage, I was in a really really bad car accident uh, when I was 15, where one of the young guys in the car was my best friend at the time, Fred Andrews. He died in our vehicle, and we hit a van head on, and a mother and a child died in that vehicle. And that was a tough time. Um, I can remember the recovery. I remember waking up in the hospital. I don't remember the accident at all. I remember waking up in the hospital with all type of glass in my head, and my head being cut. I still have the scar here, and my clothes being tattered. remember my mother and my father bringing me home, Mr. Dodd bringing me home. It almost brings tears to my eyes because of number one, the pain that was in their eyes, but also the gratefulness that God spared my life in their eyes and on their face. And the love that my family showed me, the love that these teammates, these guys I've been have been knowing forever. They all stormed the house one day, and the love that they showed me, never forgot it, and it really impacted my life. It actually changed the course of my life, Lewis, because I was doing some things out there I shouldn't have been doing, hanging with guys that I probably shouldn't have been hanging with. After that, it was like a fork in the road, and after that accident, I started hanging with a new group of guys. I started hanging with athletes. I started hanging with people who were serious about their education, and and that changed the course of my life. I don't know where I would have been had I not had the accident and continued in the course that I was in. These guys, guys I hung around with, they weren't doing anything crazy. The thing that they were doing, they were stealing at that time. Radios. All you had was a AM radio in your car, and you would get after factory AM FM radios installed, and they were stealing those. That's what then I would be the watch out sometimes.
Mm,
But I never wanted to
mm,
put myself in a position where I would end up going to 2020 because that would have crushed my mother. So it was just the group, the environment I grew up in, the people I was around. So when I started really getting involved in sports, I started hanging with a different group of guys, and that changed my course of my life. And I thank God every day for it. So yeah, but my teenage years were good though, man. I had great time in school. I heard people say that they didn't like school. I loved school. I would go to school sick.
mm,
So I just love being around the people. I love learning. My favorite subjects were science and math and history. Yeah, I love those. So I love school. I had a great teenage years. I really enjoyed my teenage years.
mm. It sounds like it. Sounds like you had a lot of good memories. I see a smile on your face as
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
think back
yeah,
and reflect on your past,
yeah,
reflect on that
yeah,
time in your life.
yeah. I didn't
So
drink
you
or
mentioned that
smoke
car
or any of
accident,
that.
and you said
Uh
that
huh.
car accident was something. Yeah, you mentioned how that car accident changed the trajectory of your life in many
Yeah,
ways.
yeah,
Would you consider that a pivotal? It sounds like it was a pivotal moment.
yeah. It was.
So
It
that
was.
got you back on the right path.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were a
it did.
lookout for guys as they would break into cars and steal car stereos. So what happened after that?
Well, after
What
that,
happened
I
after
really.
that? After high school?
Oh, okay. After high school, worked at Velvet Sheen for a year, and a couple buddies of mine. We just didn't have the means for me to go to college, so I never even had the thought of college on my mind. Excuse me. And a couple buddies of mine, John Dean and Larry Spence. John is deceased, but Larry's still here, and we're still pretty close. They say, Lou, we're going to OU next year. You should go. OU. I said, okay. So I started researching how to apply to college, and I applied. I applied for some grants. Some I got, some I did not get. And I ended up going to Ohio University a year after high school. And it wasn't a gap year. I just wasn't thinking about college, thinking about getting a good job and going to work. And went to OU. That was in 1972. Uh, I was up there with John Dean, Larry Spence, Billy Dean, and Charles Ball, and we're all still friends to this day, even though John is deceased. And I went to OU and really liked the college life. The thing about me, I didn't drink or did I smoke. I didn't do any drugs, and I didn't drink any alcohol. Uh, I had my first beer when I was 19, so that go to show you. I didn't get into that at all. There were guys I knew that got into it, but I just did not. And when I went to OU, I really fell in love with the campus and fell in love with the college life. But we didn't have the funds to for me to attend school. My mother couldn't give me anything, and I know my biological father, he sent me in an entire year in college, he sent me one $25 check. So you can imagine how far that went. So
Mm,
while at OU, I met your mother,
yeah.
uh, and she was the reason I was able to eat because she had a little campus job. And so she would, at that time, Domino's Pizza was brand new. And that's how they got their start on college campuses. So, and they had a deal where you buy one pizza, one large pizza, and one drink, and you get a large pizza and drink free. And she would eat a large pizza, and I would eat a large pizza, and it was cheese pizza, and that's how I survived in the evenings after eating uh, dinner at the cafeteria. That's how I survived. Was your mother, and she and I met. I ended up meeting your grandfather and your aunt Jill. They came down to visit one time, and
Mm,
we fell in love. We fell in love. Your mother only did 2 semesters because your grandparents couldn't afford to send her for a third semester. OU was 3 semesters long, and but I was able to do all three. But we had developed a relationship, and I made many trips to Cleveland to see her, and she made came to Cincinnati to see me. And when your grandmother, my mother, met her, it was over. She told me, I don't want you to bring no other woman in this house except Crystal. And so that solidified
mm.
it for me. Mama gave the okay on your mom. And yeah, let me see. So I tried out for football at OU.
Let me go back
And me,
to
where you want me to go back to?
yeah, your pizza. I have a question. You mentioned pizza. Do you remember how much you paid for that meal?
I think it was $10. $10 for a large pizza and a Coke,
Okay,
and you
that's
got a
not bad.
large pizza and Coke free. Now you got two pizzas for $10. Large, but it was
Oh
just
man, so
cheese
that's like
only.
$5 pizza, huh?
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yeah. That's how Domino's got their start.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So what
going
what was
back
I
to
saying?
go ahead and continue your story.
Now go ahead, Lou. What were you gonna ask me?
No, I said go ahead and continue your story. You mentioned
Oh, okay.
last thing you mentioned was grandma and when she met
Yeah,
mom and how
right.
she told you like I don't want to see another woman in this house. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So I knew then that Crystal was the one. Uh, uh, Always sweet, loving, kind, very intelligent. Uh, let's see what else. Very supportive and accepted me for who I was. I came from nothing. How I look at it, very poor. She's upper middle class. I'm very poor. Uh, she came home and met the family. We were living in subsidized housing at the time. She accepted all of that, and that meant a lot to me. She accepted me for who I was, and she accepted me because she saw the quality of family that I came from, meaning your grandmother and your grandfather, Mr. Dodd, and they both fell in love with her. And Mr. Dodd used to laugh because your mom would sit on the couch and her feet would not touch the floor. So he thought that was hilarious. Yeah, so while I was at OU, though, I went out for the football team. I was a pretty decent athlete with no training. Everything was raw because in the high school, our coaches really didn't teach us anything. We played off of raw talent and we were pretty good. So I went to OU, tried out for the team, and everybody was encouraging. They thought I had made the team, but it was very difficult for them to take a scholarship from someone that they already given a scholarship to and give to someone who's a walk on. So, that was a a short-lived dream. It was enjoyable. I got to play in the green and white game. I caught a pass in the green and white game. So that's their spring game. So that was enjoyable. Uh, but once I left OU, came back home, I went back to the company I had been working for, Velveteen, and your mother came back and she lived with us. We all lived in Mount Healthy, uh, and went back to Cleveland and got married. We got married in Cleveland. I tell you, man, one of the things one of the things that bothered me the most is that her parents wouldn't come to our wedding. That really hurt me, and I don't think I ever really shared that with you or your mother or anyone. I don't know if I should share it on this podcast. And it was because of them prejudging who I was and not looking at my family lineage and what
Mm.
type of family I was coming from. Because had they done that, they would have understood who I was. So that really hurt me. And we got married 2 blocks from their house. They could have walked to the wedding.
Mm.
Yep. But your grandmother, my mother, and
So
Mr.
who
Doc,
attended the wedding?
my mother, Mr. Dot, my biological father and his wife, um, my friends Al Spell, John Dean, Larry Spence, Billy Dean, Eric Nelson, your mom's best friend Donna, a couple of other of her friends, and her high school classmate who was an ordained minister. We got married in his parents' living room. Yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
I can visualize it
So
like
he
it was
conducted the
yesterday.
wedding.
Yeah, he did. So we had premarital counseling for about 10 minutes. He he asked us, "Why do you want to get married?" I said, "Because I love her." He said, "Okay." Yeah, right before the ceremony. But he was young, he was young. Eugene, Eugene, he was young. So we got married. I can remember too standing outside, and on your mother's side of the family, Aunt Betty, her and Uncle Felix, they were standing there, and she was like, I Betty was like, "Well, what are y'all gonna do tonight?" Talking to Crystal and I was like, "I don't know. We don't have any money." She said, "Y'all need to get a hotel room." And she looked at Uncle Felix. She's like, "Get these kids some money." And he reached in his pocket and gave us some money so that we could get a
Mm.
hotel room. Yep, yep,
Mm. Dude, that's awesome, Dad.
yep, yep.
Sounds like it brought back some memories and some emotion for you.
It did. It did. It did. I was just thinking how God has been in my life every step of the way. Because I wouldn't be here today without him. He's been there every step. So,
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you had a hotel.
yep.
That was your honeymoon, and
One
you
night.
weren't even expecting it, huh?
No, we were not. We was just gonna hang out with my buddies, man. Yep, yep. I
Mm.
don't even know where we were going
Mm.
to stay that night, because she was living with your grandfather on your mother's side. She was living with her your that would have been your great grandmother, and I just drove up from Cincinnati, so we didn't. I guess we were gonna probably hang out that night. I don't know. She probably would have stayed with her grandmother. I would have probably stayed with Eric, and then we'd have drove back to Cincinnati. So
Mm.
speaking of Cincinnati, after the wedding, we get back home. Then my mother, your grandmother, plans this big reception, dude. We were living in Mount Healthy at the time, and she laid it out, dude. Had a tables with tablecloths and chairs. Had the backyard decorated. That's where your Aunt Marvin and them get it from. Had the backyard decorated beautifully. Had all kind of food, man. and all my friends and all her friends, all our classmates, they all came to the reception. We had a huge reception. Your grandmother, and I know they sacrificed to do it. Her and Mr. Dot, I know they did, and that's why I love that man a lot.
Yeah. Mm.
So we after we
Yeah. It
got
sounds
married,
like grand.
go ahead, Lou.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Dad.
No, you go ahead. I'm not gonna lose
Now,
you
just
talking.
I was, yeah, I was just kind of just talking about how Grandpa had your back. He had your best interest, you and Mom's best interest.
Yeah, he did, man. That was a great man. And so we stayed with Mom and Mr. Doc for a while till we got our first apartment. And our first apartment was the Shono Apartments. It still exists right now today on Seymour Avenue across from Woodward High School. That was our first apartment, and we were there for about 2.5 years. Then she got pregnant with you, and so we moved across the street to Glen Meadow Apartment. And you were born at Glen Meadow Apartment. So was Jabron. Then after Jabron was
Mm.
born, we decided that we needed something larger. So that's when we moved into the house that we live in today.
Mm. So you guys have, yeah, been in that house since we were born, huh?
Since
Since
1982.
before we were born.
No, you both of you guys had
Mm.
already been born when we moved in. You were born in 76.
Okay.
We moved in
Into
82.
in- okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys moved into, you were living in Shona Apartments
Yeah. We moved
at the
from
time
Shono to Glen Meadow.
when I was
Yeah.
okay.
Shono Apartments was our first apartment. And all we had was a box spring and mattress and a stereo, a two-channel system, receiver, turntable, and two speakers. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I know you. Growing up in the household of music, I know that music is very important to you. So you had to have
Yeah,
that
it is.
stereo.
Yes, I did. Your Uncle Lewis, my uncle, your great uncle, he co-signed for us to buy the stereo. Yeah, and we didn't want to
Mm,
disappoint him, so we made sure we paid that off. So after I
yeah, you had
after
it taken care of.
yeah after Shona after Velveteen, I got a job with the Cincinnati Board of Education as a custodian, and I did that for about 2.5 years. Then I got a job with General Motors in Norwood, yeah, in assembly plant in Norwood,
Mm.
and that's made a lot of money over there. Don't have any of it
So
left, but made a lot of money over there, which made you and your sons' lives a lot better. Not like how it was when I was growing up. I made my mind made up that my sons would have that they would be better off than I was when I was growing up. That's why I gave you guys so much.
yeah, I remember those days. I
Yeah,
still remember sitting
yeah,
in the dining room playing with a racetrack. Jabron and I were on the
yep,
floor, and we had a one of the electric racing tracks, and
yep.
I still
Sure did.
remember I have that memory etched in my mind to this day.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow, wow.
man. So, man, thanks for sharing all that, Dad. Like thinking about your journey in which your life and the things you've been on, and can you think back to that moment in time where um, it was a life change, where you had that moment in time where it's like, hey, man, I had this a crazy event happen, and it changed your life for the remainder. It made you and developed you into the man that I know, the man that you are today. A loving father, a protector, a
Mm,
loving grandfather,
mm.
a loving friend. Like you are a loving husband. You're all those things. So what moment in life, like, can you think back to that time and just share with our listeners and viewers that moment in time and what that looked like for you?
Well, I would say for me, in my 20s and in my 30s, uh, living the life that I was living was, I would say, was not pleasing to God. And, I knew I always had a call on my life from the Lord from a very young age. I can remember when I was an adult and I was doing maintenance work, and I would go to someone's apartment to do some work in their apartment. And they would always ask me, "Are you a preacher?" And at that time, I was living very foul. And I would say, "No, I'm not a preacher." But that was God constantly reminding me what my call was. But I ran from it for years. And I would say the situation that changed my path and and changed my life is when I had been involved in adultery against your mother and against God, and I admitted it to her, and I left the home. I went to live with your Aunt Marvina, my oldest sister. While living with her, God really began to minister to me, and then Mike Rucker, Aunt Pinky, Uncle Buck, JJ, and Aunt Marvina ministered salvation to me in her dining room, and that changed my life. Caused me to see. It was like, people say this, and it's true. It was like these blinders just came off of my eyes, and I began to see the world totally different. And I began to seek God and ask for forgiveness um, and for Him to show me what it is I've been put on earth to do and lead and guide me in that way. So I would say that was the moment. That was the time uh, that my life changed forever. That made me the man I am today, the father I am today, and the husband I am today. It's because of my encounter with the Lord, uh, January 17th, 1994, in my sister's dining room.
Mm. Yeah, it's awesome that you remember the exact day.
Yes, sir. That's when I was born again. That's my second birthday. I'll never forget it.
Mm,
Never forget it. So
mm.
thankful. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I remember growing up, and I share this story with people. I said, I can remember my father. I said, my dad was a mean man. He was always
Hmm.
angry. Your reaction to the Bengals losing constantly, would you would stay angry for days, sometimes all
Yep.
week. And then when you came to know Christ, like your everything, like so much changed about you. You became a loving father. You would tell me that you're proud of me, that you love me. I would see you actually be affectionate towards mom. Those are things that I know just growing up, I didn't see a lot. I didn't experience a lot. I know the peace, like we had a tremendous amount of peace over our household. Before that, man, our house was not peaceful.
Right.
It was a house that a lot of people would visit, but it was not peaceful. And I know when you had that moment in life where you changed, I definitely been able to experience that time and time again, right? To the point where even our relationship improved.
Yeah.
There were things that I would hold against you, and then when the Lord came into my life, then I was able to walk through some things with you, and just to see, where you are now, where you are today. You shared when you were young and you saw a police hat. There was one of our relatives that was a police officer, and you saw the hat. As we journey through your time of your childhood, your teenage years, your college years, and that moment in life, that Kairos moment where you had an encounter with Jesus, and that changed your life. I know there was something else that happened too. You had this career that popped out of nowhere. This new season of life. So can you take our listeners and our viewers, from the point in your life before that happened, and just kind of lead us into that story, and then to where you are today.
Well, let me first address something you said previous is to how I was before Christ as a father, and the anger I carried, and so I went through counseling, and in counseling I realized that my anger was from my anger and resentment towards my biological father. And once I was able to realize that and deal with that, it really set me free from carrying that type of anger. So that's what happened there. And as far as the career, so uh, wanting to provide for my family, when I was at General Motors, they had 100% tuition reimbursement. So I went to school for heating, air conditioning, and ventilation. It was a 6-month program, 8 hours a day. So I would go to school from 8 to 4, and then go to work from 4:30 to midnight for 6 months. And that was to gain this to be certified as a HVAC technician. And so I started doing a lot of HVAC work. And then that led into remodeling work and building a business. And then in 2007, the housing crash hit and my phone stopped ringing and I stopped working. And I know at the time you were a police officer. You had been on the job probably about 8 years. And you came to me, you were like, Dad, the police department is hiring. And I think I was 53 at the time, 52, 53 at the time. And I said, oh, they are. And, going back to wearing the hats and having the dream of being a cop, that was a dream. That was one of my dreams that I always had. And so talking to you, then talking to Krista, your mom, my wife, and she was fine with it. I decided to pursue it, and it was not easy. And God took me through every phase, and so I decided to apply. I went down, and at that time, a lot of people wanted to be Cincinnati police officers. So when I went down to sit for the test, there were 3,000 people in the convention center sitting to get 60 positions with the Cincinnati Police Department. And I took the test, passed the
Wow.
test, passed the first physical that they send you through where you have to run a half mile in a certain amount of time, do a certain amount of push ups and sit ups. I was always stayed in shape. I played a lot of basketball and I played two-hand tag football. I played softball. So I stayed active physically. I was able to pass that phase. And I went through all the phases. I ended up getting rejected because one of the things that they want from a police officer is someone that operates in integrity and truth. And so when I filled out the questionnaire, I admitted to trying cocaine when I was at Ohio University, and that kicked me out the process. But because of my age and the work I had done in the community, when I went to the Civil Service Board to try and get reinstated, they listened to my story and they reinstated me. And you were the one that recommended me challenging and try and going to sitting before the board to get reinstated. So I got reinstated. I ended up graduating from the police academy in December of 2008. Was a part of the 102 recruit class. At the time I was the oldest recruit to graduate from the police department at 55 years of age. God showed me favor with the chief at that time, who was Chief Striker, because the chief is given a list of folks to choose from to to put into the academy, and he chose my name. And I think a big reason why he chose my name is because you had favor with him, Lewis. And I think out of that favor, he
Mm,
thought it would be nice to have a father follow a son on the police department. Usually it's the son following the father, but we were the first father following the son in the history of the Cincinnati Police Department. So I became a cop on December uh, 21st, no, December of 2008, without years probation, and ended up clearing my probation and served 15 years with the Cincinnati Police Department. The last 8 years in the community relations unit. Yep, as the faith-based liaison,
Mm,
developing and relationships with the
mm,
faith community for the police department. So did that cover
that's an awesome story.
it?
Yeah, that's an awesome story.
Yeah, I thank God for it, man. Thank God for it.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and through so one of the themes on here. So when you think about being a protector, and our goal, my goal is to be a courageous protector, right? To be a protector of people, in many ways, physically
hmm
and spiritually. So hearing your story and the journey you've gone on, and definitely, I know a lot of that story because
yeah.
I've been, I'm your son. I've been with you,
Right.
and I've been in your life.
Yeah.
When you think about what you're doing now and what that means to you, how are you impacting and being a protector today?
Mm.
When you think about your family, your
Mm.
friends, life, like what does that look like in your life today?
Hmm. Well, being a protector, first, my number one responsibility is to protect my home and my wife who's in it. So I have to make sure that she's safe, make sure that she's provided for. Um, excuse me, I'm not all the time successful in providing certain things because I may miss the mark. We as men sometimes can be a little harsh and um, not have, I won't say empathy or compassion, but not able to express it oftentimes in a way that is acceptable and for women, because women by God's creation are nurturers, and we are by God's creation protectors and disciplinarians. So sometimes I can come across a little harsh, but I try my best to be the protector for her. Also, I am still a protector of my sons, their wives, and my grandchildren. You're a protector of your home, but overall, I still have to cover my family, my seeds which are in the earth. And I do that through prayer. I do that through spending time with God and sharing my faith with my sons and their wives, being an example, try to be as big of an example of Christ in the earth as I can to my family. And what does that look like? A man of integrity, a man of honesty, a man of truth, whether it hurts or not, um, a man of compassion, a man of empathy. Uh, so I try to carry myself in that way, even when it comes to my associates and my friends. They see that, so I don't work hard at it. I just allow God to work through me. And in order for that to happen, there's some dying of myself that has to happen. I have to get out the way to allow Him to do that. So it's important, and men have to understand that every man is called to be a protector. And when you allow, and this is probably gonna rub some folks along the wrong way, but when allow your wife to run the home, and I'm not saying that the man runs the home in a domineering way, but it's his responsibility. He's held accountable for the things that are happening in his home and with his children. And when you allow the wife to take that role or the woman to take that role, you're not stepping into what God has called you to be when it comes to a man and a protector.
Yeah, that's good, Dad. That's good. Yeah, it's one of those things of being praying over your household,
Yes,
being a leader spiritually in your household,
yes,
right? Um, yeah, setting that example and letting your family see that. Yeah, it's very important.
yes, it is.
It's very
Yes,
important.
it is.
So if you, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for, I know you are, I'm excited that you've been a great grandfather to my children and to Jabron's children. So my
Yes,
brother's children, for
I
those who don't
love
know who
my
Jabron is.
grandchildren.
So, yeah, Dad, Yeah. So as we prepare to sign off here, is there anything that you would like, any dose of wisdom that you would like to leave our listeners and our viewers?
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that they can listen to, hold on to, and carry for the rest of their lives.
Well, I'll say this, and no matter where you at or who you are, I tell you, there's a scripture that has been stuck in my spirit for a while. John 14, and it's one through, well, I think it's one through six, 1 through 7. But the last verse of that scripture is that Jesus says that He is the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father except through Him. And we live in a world today that will tell you there are a lot of different ways to get to God. But Jesus saying that there's only one way. And when he says he's the way, the truth, and the life, there's so many lies floating around. God has the truth. We have to seek him for the truth for ourselves and for our families. And we have also have to seek him for how we are to live, the way we should live and where we should go and what we should do and what the calling is on our lives. We have to seek him for that. And our life has to reflect the life of Christ. And I know there's folks that have a lot of different faiths and beliefs, but I know what has worked for me, what has transformed me into what it is God has created me and called me to be. So I would encourage you to seek the Lord. I would encourage you to, if you don't know Him, come to know Him, accept salvation, accept Him as your Savior. Uh, Teach your children about the Lord, so that they can teach their children about the Lord and their children about the Lord. I say that's number one. And I think, and I'll say this, and I think it's the biggest struggle when me being a black man and being raised a black man, that's one of the worst things that's happened in the black community is that they have turned their back on God and think that all these other things will solve the issues of their lives. They even think man will solve the issues of their lives, and he won't. And if you look back on our history, it's been God that has solved the issues of our lives. So we need to get back to God, and that just doesn't apply to black people. That applies to everyone. That's what I would say.
Mm, that's good. That's good, Dan. I think that people will be blessed by that statement. And man, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to having Mom on the next episode.
Okay, okay.
You all will be able to get to see where our listeners will be able to get to see where I come from
Yes.
and hear my story
Yeah.
as we go on this journey with Courageous Protectors podcast. So yeah, thank you for joining us. Let's continue to be courageous protectors. That's a wrap on this episode of Courageous Protectors. If you enjoyed this episode, please share this episode and podcast with your friends and family. Please encourage them to subscribe also. Let them know how much you enjoyed this podcast. We're trying to grow a community of courageous protectors. Until next time, stay strong, stay courageous, and be blessed.
That's a wrap on this episode of Courageous Protectors. We hope you've been inspired by the bravery, resilience, and dedication of what you heard today. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, and be blessed. Take care.